From the PEP Radio Newsroom, this is the Evening News Blast. LGBTQ Nation is reporting the Supreme Court of Montana ruled on Tuesday that trans residents of the state have a right to update their legal documents to accurately reflect their genders. Transgender discrimination is, by its very nature, sex discrimination, Justice Laurie McKinnon wrote in the court's decision. Government-issued identification documents are necessary to access public life. When they do not accurately reflect a person's sexual identity, the transgender Montanan is prevented based on their sex from obtaining the same attributes of public life that a cisgender Montanan may obtain. Hence, the inability of transgender Montanans to receive government-issued identification documents accurately reflecting their gender identity is fundamentally about the nature of sex and suspect class discrimination. The case centered on Senate Bill 458, which Governor Greg Gianforte, a Republican, signed into law in 2023 to legally define sex as either male or female based on biology. The law led to trans residents being unable to access accurate legal documents. A lower court issued a preliminary injunction against the legislation in 2024 after two plaintiffs sued. The state appealed, which led the Montana Supreme Court to take up the matter. The judges voted 5-2 to uphold the preliminary injunction, which will allow trans residents in the state to continue updating their legal documents. The state Supreme Court rejected the state's arguments that the plaintiffs' potential injuries are, quote, far too speculative, end quote, and said they, quote, demonstrated concrete particularized injuries traceable to state policies, end quote. Each time that Ms. Doe or Ms. Kolarczyk must present their identifying documents to another person during a traffic stop, to vote, to apply for employment, or to board a plane, they must disclose that they are transgender, McKinnon wrote. They must carry and produce a government-issued document that does not reflect who they believe they are. Plaintiffs, therefore, have a vested and deeply personal stake in the ultimate outcome of this litigation. Alex Raitt, Deputy Director of the ACLU-Montana and counsel for the plaintiffs, said in a statement to Courthouse News that the ruling reflects what we all know to be true, that the Montana Constitution protects the human dignity of everyone, including transgender Montanans. Everyone deserves the equal protection of the law, Raitt continued, and policies that single out individuals or groups for discrimination and harassment will not withstand constitutional scrutiny. One of the plaintiffs, Jessica Kolarczyk, also celebrated the ruling. This victory represents not only a personal milestone, but also a meaningful affirmation of fairness, justice, and the rule of law, Kolarczyk said. The Montana Attorney General's office, on the other hand, expressed outrage in an anti-trans statement. Requiring the state to issue false documents simply doesn't change the reality that men cannot be women and women cannot be men, said Chase Schroyer, the office's Deputy Communications Director. It's disappointing, but not surprising, that once again the majority of the Montana Supreme Court chose to advance the agendas of their woke political allies rather than evaluate the case on its facts. This is not the first time the Montana Supreme Court has sided with trans people. In 2024, it became the first state in the nation to uphold gender-affirming care access when it upheld a temporary injunction against the state's ban on gender-affirming care for trans youth. In May of last year, the state's 4th Judicial District Court officially struck down the ban. That's News Blast for this hour. The PEP Radio YouTube channel offers news from 1 p.m. until 2 a.m. 7 days a week. Subscribe to the PEP Radio channel to keep informed all day long. PEP Radio is available on the Live 365 app, the PEP Radio page at paequality.com, Roku, and Alexa. Up next, we have the Meadville area weather forecast here on PEP Radio.